The United States of America is made up of 50 individual states, but have you ever wondered how each state got its name? Today we'll be explaining the meaning of all 50 state names, so let's start by making some broad characterizations. While the names of each state come from a variety of languages, we can easily group them into two broad categories. 21 states have European origin, and 24 states with Native American origin. One thing you probably noticed is that only adds up to 45 states, and that's because we will not be including Oregon, Idaho, Arizona, Maine, or Hawaii in our generalizations list, since the origin and meaning of their names are very unclear, but don't worry, we'll get to them later. Out of those 45 states, 41 of their names can be broken down into four main categories. People, states named after a specific person, such as monarchs, explorers, and founding fathers. Places, states named after pre-existing places in Europe, the Americas, and even in fictional stories. Natural features, physical features such as lakes, rivers, and mountains found in that state. And Native American tribes, states named after the native people already living in them. Let's start with people. There are 11 states named after people, and out of those 11, 7 are named after European monarchs. Virginia and West Virginia are both named after Queen Elizabeth I, who is known as the Virgin Queen. North Carolina and South Carolina are both named after King Charles I, after his son King Charles II granted a charter to found the colonies in 1669. Maryland was named after Henrietta Maria, the queen and wife of King Charles I. Georgia is named after King George II, whose son King George III would have a much more influential role on American history. Louisiana is the only state named after a French monarch named in honor of King Louis XIV. The name Louisiana would apply to the entire French territory in America until purchased by the U.S. in 1803. Aside from monarchs, other Englishmen also got their glory by having a state named after them. Originally New Amsterdam, New York was originally a Dutch colony that was ceded to the English in 1664. The colony's name was changed to New York after the Duke of York, who you know by his more famous royal title later in life, King James II. William Penn named Pennsylvania after his family name Penn. Pennsylvania is the only state to be named after its founder. Delaware was named after explorer Lord Delaware, who was the first governor-general of the Virginia colony. The last state on our list named after a person is Washington, the only state named after a founding father or a U.S. president. The next category on our list is places. These four states are all named after a pre-existing place. Let's start with the two states of English origin. New Hampshire was named by Captain John Mason after the county of Hampshire in southern England. Similarly, New Jersey is named after Jersey, the island in the English Channel, the birthplace of the colony's founder, Sir George Carteret. New Mexico is also pretty straightforward. The name Mexico itself comes from the Nahuatl language from the name Mexili, referring to the Aztec people. This last one is kind of a stretch, so bear with me on this one. California got its name from Spanish explorers, but the name itself was derived from the fictional island of California, a fictional story of Queen Khalifa. The name comes from a Spanish romance novel written by Montalvo in 1510. The book describes California as a paradise with lots of gold and gems. So even though California was originally a fictional place, the real California was still named after a place, even though that place technically wasn't real. Okay, come on. Cut me some slack. I got 50 of these things to go through. Moving away from places, we have the largest category on the list, natural features. 17 states are named after either rivers, lakes, mountains, hills, and descriptions of the land. Most of these names already existed in native languages before the settlers arrived, but were adapted into English, so I apologize for my pronunciation in advance. Out of these 17 states, 9 of them are named after rivers and lakes. Connecticut comes from the Algonquin word Connecticut, which means on the long river. Michigan comes from the Ojibwe word Meshigami, which means large lake. Mississippi also comes from an Ojibwe word that translates to great river. Ohio comes from the Iroquois word Ohio and translates to beautiful river. The name Wisconsin was given by French explorers that interpreted the native name for the river as Mescousin and was later changed into English. Then there's Nebraska, which means shallow water in Sioux, Minnesota, that means cloudy water in Sioux, and Missouri, which means muddy water in a local tribal language. Yeah, I'm not making those up. Lastly, there's Colorado, who was named by the Spanish for the redness of the Colorado River. Continuing with natural features, there are 4 states that are named after mountains. Massachusetts comes from the native word Muswachaset, which translates to big mountain. Vermont, on the other hand, is a combination of 2 French words, vert, which means green, and mont, which means mountain. So Vermont literally translates to green mountain. Nevada is a Spanish word for snowy, describing the snow-clad mountains. Similarly, Montana doesn't have any fancy meaning, but directly translates to mountain in Spanish. Apart from rivers and mountains, there are a few more states named after natural features that didn't quite fit with one another, so we'll just go over them now. Rhode Island is Dutch for red island because of the redness of the clay along the shore. Kentucky comes from the Iroquoian word Kentucky, which means meadowland or on the meadow. The meaning of Wyoming can either be interpreted as big river flat, extensive plains, or alternating valleys. But all the meanings have one thing in common: Wyoming is a giant and flat wasteland. Finally, we have the largest state in the US, Alaska. Alaska's name comes from the Aleut language and means great land or the mainland, referring to its large size. The last category on our list is states named after Native American tribes. Just like the natural features category, most of these names were already used by the natives but were adapted into English after settlers arrived. Alabama comes from a local Indian tribe of the Creek Confederacy called the Alabamans. Tennessee is named after a Cherokee village called Tennessee, although the meaning of the word is unknown. Kansas and Arkansas come from the French term Arkansas, which likely came from the Algonquin term for the Cowpaw people, Akansa, which means south wind people. Oklahoma is two Choctaw words put together, Okla and Homa. The name translates to red tribe or red nation. Iowa comes from the Iowa people who were already living in the territory. North and South Dakota were both named after the Dakota tribes living in that area. The word Dakota translates to allies or friends. The name Utah comes from the Ute people, which was adapted into Spanish, but the origin is unknown. Then there's Indiana, which really isn't named after a Native American tribe, but got its name from Congress when in 1800 it established everything west of the pre-existing American settlements as the Indiana Territory. Apart from the four main groups, there were three states that I couldn't really fit into a category, so I'm just going to get them out of the way now. The Lone Star State got its name from the word Tejas, which means friends or allies. Illinois comes from a native Illini word Ilinwiwa, which means speak normally. I guess that's what the French thought their name was and put OIS on the end. Florida, which doesn't really fit into any category at all. When Ponce de Leon landed there on Easter Sunday in 1514, which is the Spanish Feast of Flowers or the Pascal de Flores, the name Florida stuck, and Florida is the oldest surviving European name to still exist as a state name today. Before we get to the last 5 states, it's important to note that most state name origins and meanings are not very clear, and even some of the previous states have multiple theories concerning the origin and the meaning. I did not put these last 5 states into a broader category because I could not find a conclusive meaning on these states, but I'll still talk about multiple meanings they have and why the confusion exists. Starting off with Maine, one theory is that the French named it after the French province of Maine. Others claim that it was named by the English after the village of Broad, Maine, but it could also more simply come from the term the mainland. Oregon, we really have no idea either. One theory is that it was named for the oreganum plants that grow along the coast. Another is that the Spanish named it after a stream in Spain named Oreo de Oregon. The Portuguese named the area Oragua, which means hearing water, but that one seems like kind of a stretch to me. Idaho has 2 popular contradictions. The first origin of Idaho is an Apache word Idahe, which means enemy. The second is a Shoshone word Idaho, which means light of the mountains. Next up, Arizona. The name comes from Spanish, Arizonac. Some claim the name is Aztec and the word Arizuma, meaning silver bearing, while others claim the name Arizona comes from a local word meaning small spring. The final state on our list is Hawaii, which has 2 main theories as well. The first has to do with the word Hawaii Ki, meaning place of the gods. The other theory could be named after Hawaii Loa, the legendary discoverer of the islands. Well, there you have it. That's how all 50 states got their names. Make sure to like the video if you learned something and comment on which one surprised you the most. If you stuck around this far in the video, you might as well hit that subscribe button because 99% of you haven't. I'm serious. 99% of my viewers are not subscribed. If you want to see another awesome video, go ahead and click right here. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.